Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Good Hearted Podcast. Today we are chatting all about self-help books, which I am so excited about because I've read too many, let's be honest. But so many of them have helped me in different ways. So I'm excited to get into how they've helped me, how they might help you, and just hopefully give you some recommendations for self-help books that might actually be beneficial for you, because I know there are so many out there and it can feel very overwhelming to just go and pick one up off the shelf. So I really started getting into self-help books in, I'd say, college or right after college, definitely my early 20s. In high school, I read a lot of novels, but then I just kind of wasn't interested in them anymore. And self-help books was like very popular at the time. So I started buying lots of those. Of course, at that time, I was also trying to build my own photography business. And so it just seemed like they would be very helpful for me and hopefully help me grow my business and build like my dream life. And now looking back, I think I was just really curious about who I was as a person and what my future would look like. I wanted to get to know myself better. I wanted to improve certain things. I wanted to know what my strengths and my weaknesses were so that I could like use them to my advantage a little bit better. And I think what I was really searching for was the secret to a good, happy life. Now, I can't say that I found that inside those books, but I do feel like I've learned a lot of things from these books that have kind of helped me piece together what a good and happy life means to me and to keep living that way. So really what reading these books has taught me is to just stay curious, be willing to be open-minded, be willing to learn new things, be willing to hear somebody else's perspective, even if it's annoying, because that has definitely happened to me before when I've read books like this. But that doesn't mean that their opinion isn't valid. It just means that maybe I need to work on something if it kind of rubs me the wrong way, or it's okay if we disagree on things. So I really like to be challenged when it comes to my beliefs and my morals and my ethics. And so I love learning from other people. So I do think self-help books can be really beneficial in those ways. If you're willing to be open about it, willing to go into it with wanting to just learn something new and not having so much pressure on like, this book better change my life, because that's a lot to ask of like a $20 book. And the author is just telling their story and their perspective and what they've learned about life based on the opportunities they've had. So it doesn't always necessarily mean that your life needs to look just like theirs. You can take their advice with a grain of salt, or if it changes your life, great. I'm happy for you. Just don't put that kind of pressure on a self-help book. And I just want to get one thing clear before we really dive into this. I am not a fan of motivational books, okay? I don't like to hear, do these 3 things and your life will be so much better and it will be perfect. You just have to follow my exact steps. That is not my cup of tea. So if that's the kind of books that you're looking for, you might not be interested in the ones that I'm going to share today. I'm more like the inspirational ones. So that's why in kind of like my podcast and business and things like that, I don't always like to use the word motivation. I like to use inspiration instead, because basically I like the content that just sparks an idea in me and gets me thinking. I don't want to feel the pressure or the burden to go do exactly what somebody else is telling me to do, because they don't know my life. They don't know my situation. And so I don't like giving them that power. That could just be me being a control freak. I don't know, but either way, but I like the inspirational books that encourage me to dream, think about things differently, and get even more curious. I like being encouraged to make changes that are good for my life, not told you have to follow this exact formula to have a good life, if that makes sense. So sometimes I do actually read the self-help books, but usually I like them in the audiobook format. So back when Audible really started getting popular, I binge listened to tons and tons of self-help books. They just kind of feel like podcasts to me. And honestly, I've talked about it before. I used to really struggle with reading and I didn't like committing to a book, and I would get bored easily or fall asleep like immediately. So now I only read fiction, actual physical books, and I like to listen to the audio version of self-help books. It also kind of allows me to read 2 at once. So, if I'm busy with Harper, but I can get an earbud in, then I can listen to my audiobook. And then when I'm winding down in the evening, I can read my physical book. And also I just love the act of having this book in my hands. And again, it's something almost creative for me to to do and I can kind of escape life versus thinking, oh, I've got to pick up this book again and that bitch is going to tell me something I don't want to hear. I'm not saying that all these authors are bitches, but you know what I mean. I just feel like the book is pushing me in an area where I don't feel very comfortable or I feel self-conscious. It's something I'm struggling with. That's not exactly the book I'm going to reach for at bedtime. So for me, it's just better to listen to the audio version. So you can do this on Audible, or your local library probably has some kind of app for you to just rent audiobooks, which is amazing. Like, you can save so much money. And if you know me at all, you probably know that I don't have the time or don't take the time to like clip coupons and keep an eye out for all the crazy sales, but I will be cheap and get things for free as often as I can or want to. And so I kind of struggle with actually buying books because I think I've had so many of them let me down in the past. I'm like, I don't want to spend my precious money on a book that I might not like, that I might not learn from, or that I might just never read again. And plus, that's creating even more waste in the world unless I was to give that book to somebody else. And then again, like, you just never know if that book is going to end up in kind of a permanent home or if it's just going to do more damage. So I love listening to self-help books on Libby. That is our library app to listen to those audiobooks and even read ebooks. So definitely look into your local one. I'll try to link any resources I can find on that, because then you just have to put a hold on a book and then you can borrow it. It's free. You might have to wait a couple weeks to get the book, but who cares? Like, if it's free, it's worth waiting a couple weeks, at least in my opinion. And again, if you want to buy them or you already have an Audible subscription, I think all of these ones I'm going to talk about today, you can get through there. And I will leave Amazon links for these in the show notes, just in case like you do want the physical book. So that way you just have the direct link to get right to it and hopefully maybe like change your life from reading these books. Okay, so the first three I'm going to mention have had the biggest impact on my life. I read all three of these quite a while ago, and I can confidently say that these books really did change my life. They changed my perspective, the way that I still operate today and do certain things. So these three were like the original three self-help books that I read that really made a big impact on me. So I hope that either you have read these and you feel similar, or you check them out after you listen to this podcast episode, because, well, I'll just get into it. So the first one is Big Magic. Okay. I know a lot of people have read this and it is for good reason. I literally just re-listened to it before this episode, so that was fresh in my mind. And I had even more little tiny like epiphanies while I was listening to it again. So it's by Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And it is just jam-packed with inspiring words and stories and passages. And she has such a different perspective on creativity and staying curious and embracing that magic in your life. But some of the biggest takeaways I had was not putting so much pressure on your creativity. That's why so many artists end up struggling mentally, because they have this thing that they're talented at, that they love to do. It's everything to them. But then they ask everything of it. They ask it to pay all the bills, to support them, to make them happy, when the creativity is like just trying to be there. So that's always been an interesting concept for me, and something like I've tried to wrap my head around time and time again. And like when I started this podcast, I really tried not to put that kind of pressure on it, because I just didn't want to give up on it. I didn't want to set all of these goals and expectations when I had no idea what the hell to expect when starting a podcast, because I've never done this before. Like, I can't know what I don't know. And so I just decided to go with my gut and to not worry about monetizing it right away, to getting sponsors and like all of these things that would make it so much more stressful. And I would probably be spending my energy and money and time on things that weren't creative. And then like my creativity would be drained, because that's exactly what I did in my photography business. So that was a huge, huge takeaway for me from the book, that I could be creative and it doesn't have to make money. Or if it is something I'm wanting to make money at, be patient. Like, don't ask these crazy big things of your creativity and of your talent when it's just the magic that lives inside of you and wants to be expressed. And there are several other really good takeaways, but like I said, that was the biggest one for me. So the next book that really changed my life is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And now I read this way before there was a Netflix show, way before everybody knew who Marie Kondo was. And it was a scary book for me to read. It was very hard, mainly because I can be so sentimental and attached to things, or at least I used to be. I'm not anymore. And of course, around when this book came out, minimalism was way more popular and everybody started really talking about it. And we lived in a really small house, but I still had stuff from when I mean, obviously was a baby, but then also like grade school and all of the notes from my friends and all of these random things that I had just held on to because I had always had them. And so from reading this book and really changing my mindset around my things, I was able to declutter my whole house and get rid of a lot of shit. And the reason this was so beneficial for me is because I was so stressed out at home. It really did not feel like a home. I remember saying that to Dylan all the time. I was like, I just feel like this is a house that is packed to the brim with clutter and stuff that I don't even want anymore, but I feel this guilt that I have to hold on to it. And there are a few things that I got rid of that, I kind of regret, like not really, but it's like, oh, that would have been nice to have it. But I at least have pictures of the things that I did get rid of. And I am not a minimalist by any means. I'm like, kind of in the middle. I'm not a maximalist and I'm not a minimalist. I try to only keep things that we have a home for and we have enough room for in our house. I do have small organization systems, but if it kind of gets out of hand, that just lets me know I have too much stuff because I just had so much guilt and shame and negativity around these things that were cluttering up my house and I wanted to be free of it. And once I did start getting rid of things, I could breathe and like our house didn't feel so crammed. And honestly, when we moved into the house that we're in now, we had way less stuff that we had to move. And even now, like our house is kind of empty. Like I've gotten some decorations up, but we don't have a ton of bulky furniture. We don't have a bunch of decorations on the walls. And that's the way I like it. I like to not have shit everywhere where I can see it because then I feel like my mind is clearer. Does that make sense? I know somebody might think I'm acting crazy right now, but like that's just how I feel, It's like when you go around and you see something on the kitchen counter and something on the floor in the bathroom and then the dining room table is covered and all you can think is, oh my God, I have to clean up this and this and this. And it just turns into this like crazy frenzy thing. And then you forgot the important thing that you were actually trying to do. So by just trying to have homes for things that they immediately go right back there or at least not having so much has been so good for me. So I am very, very, very thankful that I read this book and that it resonated with me and it gave me the permission to let go of things that I felt had been such a burden and just been like weighing me down for so long. So then the last book that I wanted to talk about that really did change my life is Rising Strong by Brené Brown. Now I adore Brené. Like ever since I read this book, I was one of her biggest fans. I've read, I think, everything that she's ever released. I love her podcast. She is so wise and compassionate and honest and vulnerable. And honestly, I want to be her when I grow up. Like I want to be just like her. She is such a role model to me. And this book really, really inspired me to be more vulnerable, to share my story, to do it bravely and unapologetically. And I just resonated with so many of the stories she shared. And this one, honestly, I read so long ago and I've read so many others. I don't remember the exact takeaways that were in this particular book. All I know is that it was so, so good. And I'm going to listen to it again here soon just for a refresher. But it was really the first time I had heard somebody sharing about being vulnerable more and the science behind sharing your story and being open and honest with people versus fighting that connection and trying to just be a fake person that doesn't really tell anything about themselves. And I think that's really what encouraged me and empowered me to start sharing my own story on social media. Because in person, if you sit down and we have lunch or something, I have no problem talking about my personal life, my past, whatever shit that I've been through. I try not to lead with it, but if you ask me the questions or the conversation just goes in that direction, I'm more than happy to be open and honest about that. But I was really scared to do that online. I felt like it wasn't professional. It made people uncomfortable. And honestly, it's so funny now because I don't share anything on Facebook. We've talked about this a million times. I'm never on that platform, but it's because I didn't feel like it was a safe space for me to share my story. And so that's why I love Instagram. That's why I love the podcast, because it's a place where people who want to hear my story can connect with me and hear it if they want to. And so I am so thankful to Brené and to Instagram, honestly, for allowing me to share my story and allowing me to connect with other people who had been through the same shit I had been through, or at least similar, And I have just received so much love and support because I was willing to be a little bit vulnerable. So I will always be thankful to Brene for that and for this book. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about books that I have read recently, or I should say listened to. So the next one, surprise, surprise, is another Brene Brown book, and it is Braving the Wilderness. Oh my God. I think I read this or listened to it in like a day, maybe 2 days. And it was probably like a 5 or 6 hour audiobook. Also, a little hack. I listen to mine at like 1.25 speed or sometimes 1.5 because let's be honest, I have a toddler who is crazy and running around and I don't have a lot of like quiet alone time to just enjoy these books anymore. And so I listen to them a little bit quicker just to get through them a little bit faster. But this one was so damn good. Adored it, loved it. I resonated with so many of the stories once again, and she just had some really fascinating research that she shared, which I love that. No shade to anybody who does write a self-help book, but I love that she actually has science and like things to back up the stuff that she's saying. It's not just like her personal opinion and experience necessarily. And I talked about this book a couple episodes ago because she talked about the Garth Brooks song, Call in Baton Rouge, and I had a story about that song. So this book gave me some really great reminders about, again, being vulnerable, shutting my damn mouth so that other people can talk. When I'm having a conversation, say things like, say more, versus me automatically changing the subject, asking a new question, or, trying to bring it back to me somehow, making it all about the person that I'm talking to, giving them a safe space where they can be vulnerable if they want to, and just not being afraid of that wilderness, to sit in it, to feel all of the feelings, to be scared, to be terrified, and to choose to work through it anyway, even though it's so, so hard, to be willing to sit in the pain with my friends as they go through something. Not to just say something that is, positive and potentially toxic because I just want to get out of this uncomfortable conversation, to really just say, you know what? That fucking sucks. That sucks. Let's just sit in that together and I will be right here with you. Not rushing to come to a conclusion and fix everything and just to sit in the suck for a little bit. And also, she talked about basically being able to love someone and not agree with everything they say or do or believe, which I feel like everybody needs that message right now because I have definitely struggled with that, especially in the past year where people that I love greatly have disappointed me, and just being able to put that aside and saying that I still love them. I don't have to write them off because of something that they did that made me uncomfortable or whatever. And if it's like super personal, that's something that I need to talk with them about. But just being able to live harmoniously, all together, and to know that we're different and we believe different things, but knowing that that's okay because we're all different. We were all made differently. It's normal for us to have different beliefs and different ethics and different thoughts and ways of life. That's just how it is. So if you have not listened to this one, I would highly recommend it just as almost a wake-up call, or at least a reminder or nudge or inspiration to do some things a little bit differently in your life, or at least slow down and think about it before you just react to something. So again, really enjoyed this book. So the next one that I just listened to recently is the 12-Week Year. And I heard a lot of people recommending this. And it's kind of an older book. So I was surprised that I had heard so many people talk about it in the last year. It was read by some like old white dude, right? And it was so annoying. Like I could barely get through the book. So maybe you would be able to listen to it. Maybe you could pick it up and read it. But honestly, I kind of just want to save you time and or money and tell you basically what the title is what the whole book talks about over and over and over and over and over again. And basically just breaking down a year into 12-week segments, right? So 4 quarters in a year, taking a week off in between each quarter. And essentially, like any goals that you have for business need to fit into that 12 weeks. So for instance, when I started reading this book, I was right about to launch the podcast. And so the end of my 12 weeks is actually going to be in just a couple weeks, like June 21st, if I remember right. And so during that time, I wanted to do things like launch my website, get my social media graphics done, record a bunch of solo podcasts and plan guest podcasts in advance. I wanted to start my Patreon and launch it. Like all of these different things that I was like, okay, this is what I can tackle in this 12 weeks. And then anything else that I kind of had an idea for that kind of popped in my head, like instead of what I would normally do, which is just stop everything I was doing and work on that new bright, shiny, exciting project, is I put it on a Post-it to revisit in my next 12 weeks, which it's over there. Or else I would go get it for you and show you. And so things on that list are things like create graphics for my YouTube channel, start filming my podcast episodes so that I could actually have a video podcast on YouTube, create thumbnail images, reach out to more people to be guests on my podcast, add more pages to my website, brainstorm more content through the end of the year. Like all of these things that weren't needing to be done right now waits for the next quarter. And when you take the break off in between each 12 weeks, that's when you kind of really have all those ideas. Like you want to sit down and just kind of brain dump all the things that you would like to do in the next 12 weeks. And then each 12-week period, you break down into their individual weeks and then every day. And then that way, you know exactly what you need to work on every single hour of every day of every week, every month to get to that goal at the end of your 12 weeks. And honestly, this has been a really good shift for me. And I think it's going to be great for me to actually take an intentional break in between my quarters. So I can work my ass off for all of those 12 weeks. And then I have a full week where I don't have to do shit if I don't want to. And so for us, we're actually going to be in Florida during my 1 week off. So it worked out perfectly, honestly. And not that I'll do a ton of brainstorming during that trip, but I know I will come back so excited and recharged and ready to get back to work. And I'll have my running list on Trello and or my Post-it note to kind of spark my memory. And then I can go from there, which I'm sure I will have tons more ideas by then. But it also makes me realize I don't have to do it all right now. And now I can still have a big major goal for the end of the year. And then again, I just want to break that down into each quarter. What do I need to be doing to reach that? So if you had a financial goal that you wanted to meet at the end of every quarter or at the end of the year, you just break that shit down. Okay. So it's not rocket science. And honestly, what turned me off about this book so much was he kept talking about women wanting to lose weight in the span of a year and what they need to do quarterly and then each week and each day. And I'm just over people talking about that shit because it's so easy. It's the low-hanging fruit. The easiest comparison that you can make is a weight loss goal. Get a little more creative than that. Stop talking about it. He mentioned it 100 times in the book. So I know they will never sponsor this podcast because I've talked so much shit, but save your time and money. Break your years down into 4 quarters that are 12 weeks long. Celebrate all of your wins during that 1 week that you have off, and then get your ass back to work the next 12 weeks. Make some shit happen. You will be golden. Okay. And literally a couple days ago, I finished listening to Atomic Habits. That was one, again, everybody's been talking about. It's been very popular and it was okay. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. And I think it's hilarious because I said the 3 that changed my life were all by women. And then most of these other ones are by men. So I guess I'm just not impressed. I don't know. I liked the Atomic Habits. There were some really good takeaways that I had and kind of almost light bulb moments where he was basically talking about building onto your habits. So things that you already do before bed, maybe you wash your face, you brush your teeth, you get your pajamas on, you get in bed. Well, what if your book is sitting on your pillow so that at bedtime, that's going to be your trigger to pick up that book and actually read a couple pages before you go to sleep. So basically he was just saying, what are some good habits that you can try to build on top of things that you're already doing so that you can be that ideal person that you want to be? Because it's not just going to happen overnight. You're not going to think about it out of nowhere. If your book is in the damn living room or something and you would have to go get it to get in bed. No, you're going to be well, I'm staying in bed. I'm just not reading tonight. But if in the morning when you made your bed, you put your book on your bed, then you would be triggered at nighttime. Oh yeah, I should read that book before I go to sleep. And again, that one is a super basic one, but that's kind of the idea. So of course he also talked about weight loss, which is whatever. But he said, instead of having bags of chips out on the counter, maybe you have your fruit and vegetables out on the counter so that they're an easy snack that you can see and that you actually grab and enjoy instead of letting them rot in your cabinet like mine usually do, or in the fridge. So those were some really cool takeaways. And I actually did really enjoy his personal story and just how he had to kind of pivot his career, because I pivot all the damn time. So we love it. We love to see somebody else talking about something like that. And he had lots and lots and lots of other information in that book. Honestly, I will probably listen to again because it was very jam-packed. I don't know if it was all like super informational and great, but it was a lot. So I feel like sometimes I have to do that with these books. I have to like read it once, digest it, see what I take away from it this time, work on some of those things, and then I can revisit it later. So this is definitely one I'll revisit at least one more time. Okay, and when I made like my outline for this episode, I added things that were on my list, but I already read one of these. So the next one that I had on hold on my Libby app was To Hell with the Hustle. So I've seen some people talking about this one. You guys know how I feel about hustle culture. So honestly, I thought this book was going to be right up my alley. I loved the cover of it. I loved that it said hell in the title. Like, I loved everything about it, except for what was in the book, kind of. And I did like some of the book, okay? It wasn't all bad. So yeah, I don't think I really understood what this book was going to be about when I started reading it, because it was just on my list. Saw people recommending it. I started reading it. Some things I did really enjoy. He talked about things like, basically, as millennials, we feel like we have to be rushing. We have to be on that 30 under 30 list. We have to have it on. We have to have it right now. And then we end up experiencing burnout, and our relationship suffers and our health suffers and all of these things, which I was like, yes, absolutely. Versus kind of like what I've talked about before. What does success actually look like to me? What is actually important to me? Where can I stop hustling so that I'm not doing a little bit of everything and I'm doing a bad job at it? Versus how can I kind of focus in, make time for my family, make time for myself, take care of myself, all of those things. So some things I really did enjoy about this book. It was a quick read. It was only like 4 hours. And so I got it done in like 3, listening to it on 1.5. But there were just a couple things that he said that rubbed me the wrong way. And again, that doesn't make me totally write off a book. It just wasn't my favorite. I felt like he was kind of going on rants a lot about people. And I don't know. I'm just not always here for something like that, even though I've been ranting this whole damn time. So maybe I'm a hypocrite. I don't know. But anyway, it might be worth a read. Just read the description, see if you're into that kind of book, and then you can go from there. But other than that, I like the overall title of the book, To Hell with the Hustle. I am all about that. And so then the next 2 books that are actually on my list, and I now have officially borrowed them, I think so, because I'm hoping next week I can listen to both of these, is Untamed, which again, fucking everybody has been talking about this book. I haven't read what it's about. I'm a 7, okay? Don't blame me. Blame my Enneagram. But the cover's really cute. And I think I like the author. I think I follow her on Instagram. And so, yeah, we're just going to see how it goes. Hopefully that one will be inspiring and encouraging and great and perfect. And then I know this one is going to be good. And this is the one that I am like so freaking pumped to listen to. And it is, I'm going to read the title, okay? Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. Now, this book is written by twins, and they were on Brene Brown's podcast, and even just their podcast episode was blowing my mind. It was so good. So I am really looking forward to this book. I think it is going to rock my world, to be honest. I think it is really going to live up to the hype that I've created for it in my head. So I hope that you will check this one out. I will definitely report back once I have actually read it or listened to it. And I will actually link that podcast episode in these show notes as well, because that was a really good episode. So this episode ended up being longer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't realize I could ramble about self-help books for so damn long. But thank you for hanging in here with me. If you've read any of these books and you agree with me, or even if you disagree with me, please DM me. Let me know. I love chatting about shit like this because I need to find more people who are nerdy about self-help books like I am, because my husband could care less. So please talk to me about your favorite self-help books and let me know if any of these would make your list of like the ones that changed your life. And if you think that this episode would be beneficial to somebody, please take a screenshot and share it to your stories. Make sure you tag me so that I can see it and maybe even repost it on my own stories, or share it with a friend that you think could benefit from it. Because I have read so many bad self-help books, or ones that were really negative. And I didn't want to talk about that today, like the worst ones that I've read, because it doesn't help anybody. But I think it does help to hear the best ones. And hopefully by hearing like why I enjoyed them and the type of self-help book that I'm into, hopefully if somebody else is kind of on the same wavelength as me, they would enjoy these books as well. So it would mean the world to me if you shared this out with somebody. And I truly hope that if you take the time to listen or read any of these, that they do change your life, even if it's in a small way, because we can always learn and grow. So just please stay curious, keep chasing after all of these things. I am so excited for you to keep growing into the truest version of yourself. And I'll talk to you in my next episode, and I'll see you in my next video.